We're the consumer champion for health and social care. So our remit is to work with everyone who lives, who works in Slough, who has a family member in Slough, and who use health and social care services. And we collect their views and their experiences. So we report what's working well, what's not working so well, where there's gaps in services, where there needs to be improvements, and what people are generally saying. So that's one of our main remits. And we also provide information and signposting. And at present that takes place at the Citizens Advice Service, and Aaron Jott leads on that piece of work. So people need to find out where their local hospital is, or their doctors, or they want to find out some new information, you can contact Healthwatch via the walk-in or our website, or email, or call a member of the staff team. So that's what Healthwatch is here to do. Some of you came along to our launch event, which we had in December. And that event was attended by around 36 people. And we did send out a learning and feedback report. So we captured all of the information which people shared in the group. And the main remit for Healthwatch for this piece of work was bringing local services together and just updating everyone on what was new, what was happening, what was changing, and what services are available in Slough. Because we understand in Healthwatch that it can be very complex and complicated, and sometimes services close and people aren't aware. So we want to do something to bring everyone together and to get some real sharing of information. So this, if anyone hasn't received the report, please let me know and I can email it to you. But the key thing which came out time and time again is that people's talking about communication. So one of our key things that we want to bring forward is that it's really important that everybody does communicate. And as services, as providers, as volunteers, if we've got something new happening, if we can really take time to share it so that we can then share that with our clients and our contacts, I think it's really, really important. So that was our learning report which we've done. And just for Healthwatch, to let you know the current projects which we're working on, we're doing the review of the Slough Walk-in Clinic, and that's being taken place with a piece of work through Dash and Shop to find out how vulnerable people use the Slough Walk-in service, as well as doing a call for information from the local community. Have you used the walk-in service? Did it have the services that you need? What do you feel that's missing? And what was your general experience? We've also finished a piece of work on sensory education.
So I've got about 10 minutes to talk, and then you get to ask questions. So I'm going to try. I had a PowerPoint slide, so it was going to be a lot easier originally, but I hadn't appreciated the building, and I should have really done my research before I got here on that one. So space really is the existing community groups that are in Slough getting together to deliver what was previously the old contracts around health and social care and prevention agendas. I think I'll just give you a little picture of what it was in terms of the local authority and what's going on nationally. So if you're looking at the national issue, what's happening, and you probably know this, is that as we go into the future, demands for services will grow, all right? And that's because all of us are living longer and longer and longer. So we're living 10 years longer, which means that there's more of us who are older that are around that need services, and the number of people who are working that pay the taxes to increase that as a percentage is going down. So demand is going up at a time when the amount of money available to do services is going to be a lot less. So that's the real challenge, and that's not the challenge of today. That's not that, Slough is the only one that's doing it. That is the country, and that's the issue, which is why you'll find the NHS is going through loads of changes. You'll find the GPs are going through loads of changes. You'll find the local authority are going through loads of changes, and that has meant the voluntary sector going through a number of different changes. But to give you a quick example of that, is let's say the number of people we need to help goes up from 1 to 2, all right? That's a doubling. But let's say the money that we've got goes from 1 to half. Well, now you've got half to produce 2. That's 4 times as much. So you can see we're going both in the wrong directions. And therefore, if we do everything the way that we were doing it, it ain't going to work out. So a very quick example would be, if we've got a lunch club that costs £25,000 a year to run, let's say, and we've got 1, and we need to do 4, all right? we would need to raise an extra £75,000 to run 4, so it becomes 100. The question really is, how can you get 4 running, all right, for the same price? And that's about using the community assets and the people that are here. That's it's sad to see a community asset that would go out of the community, to be honest with you, because more stuff could be happening in these kind of buildings. And so part of our thing is to encourage the local authority to give more buildings out to community groups and localities, creating community hubs, so more of those things can take place. And the ordinary citizen says, do you know what, I've got a child with autism. I think what I'll do is, if I can have a building free, and I know the family and parents and networks, to run a club by themselves, so that more people are supporting themselves. And that's the big challenge, essentially. So the consortia is made up of 4 organisations, which is Slough CVS, which is an infrastructure organisation, so we support the charities of Slough, the community groups, and there's about 430 on. Then you've got Royal Voluntary Service, which, I've forgotten their old name, but it's kind of volunteers essentially nationally. And they're a very large organisation with about £40 million turnover. And they're going to help us to recruit something called community navigators, which will be trained volunteers that can work out in the community. We've got Crossroads. Anybody heard of Crossroads?
Yeah.
Yeah? So a carers group, because the real big issue, I think, is going to be encouraging more carers to access more services, so that people who are providing support to someone can do that really well and take care of themselves so that they don't get ill, so that we then don't spend more money on things that are more about emergency or about support inside care homes or inside the NHS, etc. So that can be a very simple example. If someone who's frail, all right, falls down and hurts their leg, it can cost £10,000–20,000 in costs to do that. Yet, to have a befriender or someone that might be around to support them, to make sure that there aren't any wires sticking out, or that they're taking the medication in the right manner so that they don't get dizzy, can cost a lot less. So it's really about prevention. So what can we do today, all right, to prevent that? And that starts, I think, at the age of 0. That means 5-year-olds eating healthy. Yeah. Schools getting involved to make sure that the habits that we have, like the habits that I would have had, which is fish and chips, and you go out at school and you eat really horrible food when I was around, that we encourage our teenagers to eat much better food, so that by the time they are 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, that they're in a much healthier life. Certainly, the children that are born today will live a lot longer. So it's kind of that spectrum, which is the problems that we're dealing with today. There are things that we need to do to make sure that we don't have problems in the future. And we also got Slough Community Transport, which is a partner. So the other thing is that we have to make sure all the services that are currently in place continue in place. That doesn't mean in exactly the same way. As I said, things need to be done differently. So one of the interesting ones that we've got is something called a TG, which is part of Shared Lives. So the kind of new ways of doing that would be, if there is someone who's living in a 4-bedroom house all alone because their family's moved away and now they're kind of isolated and alone. Well, loneliness is a big killer, and it's a big issue in terms of what it does to a person's health. One of the things that a teacher can do is find another person who might be younger. Let's say it's a student nurse who's training, and they can't afford a studio flat or a room in the same manner. And if they then share the life with that person, where they get cheaper accommodation, yeah, but in return for which they'll do the shopping, make sure that person is okay, make sure that person gets to the hospital and all those kind of appointments, you then have a very strong partnership. So it's using what we currently got, just in a better manner, and ideas that do that will make the biggest difference. So I can carry on for a lot longer, really.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you might have said this, but how is it actually going to be rolled out, in the sense of, will you be floating support or will you be office-based? And how do we access
Okay, so really, another way to say it, it's not the Marks and Spencers, it's more like, what are those Bon Marches, where, it's like Debenhams, where you go in, but actually there are other providers in there. So if I told you that Space is Berkshire Vision, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so it's really more of a brand or a name to bring the group of charities and community groups together around one umbrella. But Berkshire Vision is something that we fund from the 1st of January, and they'll carry on doing what they're doing.
Right.
So we had previously Destiny Support, which is delivering services in Chalvey. That will carry on doing what it's doing. We're sitting down working out agreements with Age Concern, for instance, on what they'll be doing over the next 12 months. So
we'll continue to access those services as normal.
Yeah.
So how does Space make that different then?
I suppose really it's about the arrangements or something. So what we do is we just arrange those resources a lot differently, and also think strategically about bringing things in. So you could have these biscuits in that arrangement, which is a nice smile.
I can eat one of those.
And I'm taking these with me. Or you can have them a little bit in a different manner. So for instance, we're going to have the 4 consortium members that make operational daily decisions. But we want people to be associates within that and to contribute every 6 months or quarterly, depending on how people want to meet. But certainly to have a stake so that at the end of a year they can say, we're not happy with how services are delivered collectively. And so we have 3 types of associates. There are people that we give money to, which will be Berkshire Vision, Age Concern, etc. There will be people that we don't give money to, Healthwatch, because actually they're funded already by the local authority and they already have a role. But clearly it's important to have that partnership. They've got intelligence and insights that might have to say, do you know what, there's loads of older people, these are the issues, that's what GPs and the NHS should do, but we think that's what the community should do. And that would be then about working through the space to make sure that happens. Then we've got Enham Trust, who help individuals, all right, to go through this process, where they will then get a personalised personalised budget. Yeah. So, and with that budget, they'll provide services. And so, any organisation or CIC, community insurance company, that's providing a service to those people where they're going in there and they're paying for it, would also like them to be associated. They can then tell us, look, that's not working, or we need this. The bit that Space provides is the volunteer community sector side of things. Yeah, but we can do it in a bigger kind of
like
manner.
an overseer.
Yeah, so it's more about to get, it'd be the same as if you were running one charity, you were running one charity, you were running, and we get into a room, we go, let's deliver it this way. So if they're moving this particular community centre somewhere else, what are the needs of the area, what activities should we have? What we need to do is we need to make sure that there is a meeting place for older people to meet. You might say, well, actually, I've got some volunteers and they can help out there. And so it's that collaboration which will make the biggest difference. So one of the innovations will be something called volunteer passports. Yeah, and it will take time, but we want all the charities to at the moment, you will recruit a volunteer, train them up, and do all the legal processes. What we want is one passport that you can volunteer there, but actually, if in Britwell we need to do something, and you want to volunteer there, you can just take that passport with you. So part of our roles on a strategic level is to break some of those kind of barriers. A lot of stuff will be exactly the same. Some of it will be new, all right. It all has to be run cheaper than it used to. And we need to have insights from those charities, and those charities will get their insights from people like yourselves to then influence what's going on.
And is this a national initiative for boroughs to have coordinators for services like
It's
that?
not a national initiative, but everybody's doing it very differently. So in some boroughs, the Red Cross might come in because it's a large enough charity to do those kind of things.
To be a coordinator? Or
To deliver everything.
Okay.
In some places it may be that local authorities take more stuff in and do things themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, and because it's kind of happening, the one thing that's happening is everybody's got substantially less budgets. You would have seen the Chancellor saying, you're not going to get any more money, but should you want to provide more health, more social care, then you can have a 2% tax that you can do. And what they're doing is, in a sense, putting more responsibility back on the local authority to take over an issue which is going to grow up more than 2%, I can tell you. It's going to grow up 5-10% a year. So if you just look at the projections, that's going to be bigger. And it's, I don't know about now, but in 10 years' time, we will need to have things like families more involved in that kind of process and support, supporting older people. You may end up with apps that enable you for you to know that where the social worker is at that particular moment in time, as well as where your brother might be in terms of visiting. We need to come up with solutions which involve technology, which I'm not really having. That would be things like the PCT and the NHS.
I mean, there's a lot of good work going on by various charities, but how do we communicate that to the people of Slough? Because a lot of people are not aware what is going on or how to make use of what is happening.
I do hear that a lot, and I'm not sure what the answer is. So one of the things that we've done, all right, was that professionals who are social workers would say, what charities are there then? And I don't know. So we put something called Slough Get Involved as a website, which we probably haven't promoted it enough, but it's got all of the charity and community groups on there. So you can go in, and if you typed in youth, for instance, the charities that are working with young people would pop up. And so you would be able to then click on that one and get all the details of the services. We've also got events on there, which are really more for charities and community groups to look at. And I think national research show that the majority of people do not know the local charity that's near them, so resident. But if you are a user, you know a lot about it. And so I think that's, if you've got some answers on what we should do, that's good. But maybe we just need people to promote other charities more frequently.
It is interesting though, because Slough Borough Council website, I think is excellent. I use it all the time to try and find resources. But it doesn't feel to me that local people seem to use it very much. But they're very good at, I think most people are very good at finding out where their local takeaway is, or if they need a babysitter. They seem to be able to. It's really interesting, isn't it? I'm not sure why they don't look on the Slough Borough Council website, because it is so good.
I think if you know what you're looking for, then it's easy to find it.
Okay.
But if you just sort of know vaguely, I need something about X, Y, or Z, then if you're not specific, I think you can flounder a bit.
Okay.
I find the service are actually excellent. Now, on the other hand, my neighbours, if you're or you go to a social event, other people that are not in our world struggle. And I think the answer is we do need some answers. So I can tell you that we're looking at part of that solution, which is around social and creative activities. So we know that people need to go on more than that. So we will be developing a website called SloughHealth.org, where if you're looking for walks, you can click one button and all of the walks that are in the town are in there. And if you're looking for fit activities, then we'll be in there. If you're looking for things just like social activities around crochet or whatever, you can click on that one. But the hardest bit with that is not creating the website. It's extracting the information of all the things that are going on to do that. And the way that we've solved it is to say, well, we'll make it automatic. So anybody who's doing an activity can promote it on there. And then a resident can also find it. So we spend our energy promoting the website to residents, and the people who are doing the activities spend their time doing the paperwork to fill it up. So, and I don't know whether that will work or not, or whether it won't. But all I know is we need to try new things to see what does work and what will get us there. And those answers in the end will come from us trying to solve problems.
Well, will you have some idea of the services that will be available to unpaid carers?
I think I have a plan for what the services will be for unpaid carers here. They're either locked in now or they're being locked in by the end of March. And certainly by April. So some of it is about, I think when I look at unpaid carers, what you discover is a lot of them are in paid employment. The largest majority of people that are carers are actually in that 35 bracket, which is a bit of a surprise to people. But most carers start to become carers because one of their parents needs care. And so we're trying to use digital technology to reach them. Equally, there'll be a befriending service and what we have called community navigators who will take care of some of the social needs of a carer. There'll be carers assessments, and Crossroads will become a focal point in terms of the first point of contact with a dedicated telephone line for you to then get access to all the other services, which may well be available run by a small charity. So there's charity in Shelby that's running services. There's a charity in Bristol that's doing it. They're not funded by us, they're just funded by the lottery or Berkshire Community Foundation or Heathrow. But you'll be able to access information through that dedicated line.
So one of the space organisations will be doing carers assessments, you mentioned, rather than...
So carers assessments are going to be done by Destiny Support, which is in our first wave of training, Crossroads and a few others, PWA, so we're trying to sort of broaden it out. And then the question is whether we limit it to that. My philosophy is that it expands to as many people that can do it. The trial really is to see, is that assessment, and there's two, I think there's more than one bit to the assessment really, because there's the assessment, then there's the calculations, and the key questions are, does it need to be incredibly professional people that do that, or can it be sensitive people that are already doing advice and benefit type work, who are used to working with someone, extracting the information, and maybe somebody else can do the technical bits of the calculations.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. I've got one more question for anyone on your table, there's speak out forms. If you have any questions, obviously through the networking you can speak to Ramesh directly, or you can complete the speak out form. And as Healthwatch will take responsibility to take that back to space and to get some feedback and feed that back to the group. So I have to end the questions there. We've just got one question on behalf of Healthwatch, which...
Sorry, can I just suggest that the PowerPoint that we didn't see, could that be circulated to us, yes? Yeah?
I wasn't going to talk to all of the slides, but I can circulate it, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
So through Healthwatch, we've heard about the services that are going to continue and that things are going to be delivered a different way. We know that there are some key services in Slough which are closing. Yep. So from our understanding, that's the...
There's no services that are closing.
Okay, so all services will remain. So that's our question.
And that's not to say that the same organisation will be providing it, or that it will be done in exactly the same manner. So for instance, the CAB is closing, but in the same building as shelter, and they'll be providing those services, which means that for clients, apart from name changes and other bits...
So that was our question as part of the consumer. Everything on the 1st of April will carry on as normal. It's just a different face, and you may get your package differently.
That's right.
And how are people being shared this information?
So I think that's... in some ways badly, sometimes well, and that's because we're also going through something called a transition phase, which is January to March. So there are some things I can't talk about because we're still in negotiations with people. As you'll appreciate, if we want the current providers to do things differently, sometimes people are reluctant to do that, but eventually they'll come to that process. If they don't provide things differently, some of them will not be able to get the contracts. But our objective is to make sure...
How are you going to make sure that the experience base from people like CAB is maintained if they are no longer the citizens' advice as an entity, but their services are continuing, how are you going to make sure there's not sort of too much of a loss of experience or a loss of knowledge?
The problem is that we're more like the conductor of these things rather than the actual player. But we have had dialogues with National CAB, with Maidenhead CAB, with local CAB and Shelter, and currently we've left it alone, but Shelter and National and local CAB are talking to make sure that's a good for their residents.
So as Healthwatch, could we have the information once you have it, once it's public, and then we can deliver our remit to be informing everyone on what the new services, the new changes, if there's any new numbers, if there's anything different and what's going on, and then we can do our bit to make sure that we share that with everyone.
So we're trying to negotiate so that there are no new numbers,
Okay,
that actually is exactly the same experience as possible. And because those decisions are not necessarily ours, but in terms of the partnership, as they get locked in, we'll do that. If those decisions aren't locked in, then we will make sure a number is available mid-March to promote in January.
That's brilliant.
In April.
April.